Alright, welcome back to Adobe Dreamweaver CC. In this tutorial we're going to explore how to create media queries and how to adjust our site to match for a tablet device, and then another tutorial we'll do for mobile. But as you can see, as I start to scale inwards on the site, issues start to happen and everything starts to break and overlap and all kinds of issues happen. And that can be resolved through CSS with media queries. So you can see here this works great for a desktop site, but not for a tablet or mobile. So let's switch to Dreamweaver here real quick and we start adjusting. So what we have to do is essentially grab this nav bar and bring it into its own unique media query, and then also these elements here, the nav home, the 2D artwork, because there's spacing, there's basically margins between each of these that we could reduce. I mean, we can see it by clicking on nav home. You can see here we have 2% and 2% on each side, so that's where extra spacing is coming from. The nav bar itself actually has 10% and 10%, so if we reduce that to say like 1%, it's definitely going to improve. Even just dragging this out, you can see it starts to stretch out quite nicely. So we can pretty easily do that. So let's create a media query and let's get started. So what I'm going to do is drag this out a little bit back this way, and what you want to do is grab this gray bar here and drag out till you find a point, and you can add a media query. I'm going to show you first the old way of creating media queries, which is click on the little plus icon here, and then you could determine what kind of media query you want and so forth. I'm going to cancel out. I like to use the ruler itself. It's much more interactive and much more visual. So what you do is you grab this gray bar here and drag until you start to see the image break. Now it starts to break right away. Looks like around it's like 977, so it's fine. 975, so probably 976 it starts to break. So what I can do is hit here, click on this plus, and then type in 976, and then I'm going to leave the max width, which is this direction. You could choose min width, which would go that direction, and then there's the mid and max width, which says both. We're going to do that, and then you can create a new CSS file, but I'm going to keep it in the styles, because the whole idea of cascading style sheets is that the media query will be towards the bottom, and any styles that I apply there will override, so we don't have to redo them or anything. So we're just going to go ahead and at this point click OK, and our media query has been added. In fact, if we switch to the code view and click on styles and scroll all to the bottom, here's the media query. It's pretty easy. At media width, and then it has the measurement there, and it will have these curly brackets here. So our code will go in between those curly brackets as we go back to the split view here. So we're going to select the nav bar here, and you need to bring it into the other document. So what you can do is you can click on styles, the global, and then click on nav, and then we're going to right click on the nav and go down to duplicate into media query and choose the max width 976. If there were other media queries, they would show up there. We'd have different ones, but we only have one. So now I can click on max width, and there is the nav right there. So any changes I do to this will override the old ones. So the first thing I want to do is change the margins to say 1% probably for each one of these. Or I could even type in 0 for each one, or just drag them to 0 here. So by doing that, you'll see that the bar has pretty much been fixed at that point, but as we drag in further, there's going to be some additional issues. If I keep dragging this in, it'll break again right about, I don't know, about here, about, where is that? Let me see here. I'll actually show it right about here, which is like, I don't know, 760 something, or 770. Starts to break. So we don't need to add additional media query for it. What we got to do is adjust now these little icons, the 2D, the nav home. There's a bunch of them. Now you can go through and choose the styles, the global. Choose each one and do each one by hand. Right click, send to the media query, right click, send the media query. But there's an easier way to do it. So I'm going to show you the easier way, the faster way. You can organize your selectors by dragging them up and down in the stacking order. So I did that. I've already added the nav home here, the 2D, the 3D, the animation, the bio, and the contact. So here's the contact visited. So I've kind of added these together, not their states, but the actual different ones. All you gotta do is drag it up or down until you see a green line and you can move it. So what I'm doing is just kind of placing them in order there. So to capture all this code, what we're gonna do is go to the code view here and actually go back to split view. Let's select the first one, nav home. You can right click and go to code and then go to code view, and your cursor should be in there somewhere, and here it is, the 2D artwork. So here's the home, and what I'm going to do is highlight the home and basically just scroll down till I get all of these, and I'm just scrolling down. There's the bio, the contact, and what I want to do is make sure I get that closed curly bracket there, and I actually got contact visit. I don't need that, but I'm going to go ahead and copy it anyways. And then what I'm going to do is drag it all the way to the bottom here, and here's that media query again with the opening and closing brackets. So what I need to do is put the code right in between here. So I'm just pasting it in, and I don't need this last one, the visited. So I'm going to go ahead and just select that and delete it. So you can see how quick and easy it is to change these things. Now, instead of having to go through each of these and change, I can change them in here. So the margins are the issue. So the 2% and the 1%, if we click on split view here and go into the styles, choose the max width, choose nav home, and expand out, you can see they're both set to 2%. So if I set this to 0, 0, and then 0 here, we would have, and then hit return, we'd have a closer interaction between home and 2D now. So we can do that for each of these, and it's just so much faster doing the code view than to do it the other way. So under here, see how it's 0 and 0. So all I gotta do is highlight, wherever I want, and then just type in 0. So that's the margin left, margin right. They should be in the same place, but if you, like I did, I started a couple of these in the wrong location or a different sort of setup, and so like padding top started first on this one, so you just got to be aware of that. So just going through, look how far down the margin left and right is right here. And now we go back to split view. Now you can see everything is lined up, and we have them much closer together, and it seems like it would work out okay. They're a little bit squished, so we may want to increase it to like 1% maybe. But you can start to see how now the break would not happen at all. In fact, if I keep scrubbing down to even that low, which would be the next media query, probably around 650 or so, we can still fit all these in here, even with a little bit of padding. Again, I would probably, or margin I'd say, I'd probably give maybe 1% in each of these instead of the 0, 0, maybe in between on one side. So I'll just show you real quick. We could go to the code view here, and on contact, let's say margin left, we could do 1%, and then nav bio, we could do 1%, nav animation, we could do 1%, and 3D artwork 1%, and then 2D artwork 1%, and then nav home we could do, or actually we'll leave nav home alone. Let's just take a look and see how this looks. So here we got more spacing between each one looks much better, and look at that, and we're shrunken down pretty small. Again, we're at the 650, where the next line would be for a mobile, and I would change the whole navigation completely at that point, swap it out. But that looks pretty good. So look at the power there. So even as we get smaller and smaller, we're able to finesse and get this exactly the way we want. So all I would do is probably play around with those numbers a little bit and see, which one, how much space I need between each one. But this looks pretty good. I'm sure it would look great on each device. In fact, you can click on the real-time preview here and check it out. You can also click on this little arrow here and go to something like iPad Pro and see what that would look like. And you can see that that would be just fine. We'd have no issues there at all with the iPad Pro. So the next steps would be to modify other elements the same way, creating a new selector in that media query, copying it over and adjusting the attributes. So that's the whole idea of media queries, and I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. Until next time, see you soon in Adobe Dreamweaver CC. Cheers!